and welcome back. I'm glad you're still watching KBC Channel 1. Good morning, Kenya. On The Viewpoint today, let's talk about education. Specifically, let's talk about ECD. All of us know the importance of having that early childhood development in school. Without that, everything can go haywire. And we just have to continue with the discussion where we left it last week. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta is in the United Kingdom with his partners and colleagues for that bilateral talks, and as well as have the money to build this particular nation. And on that note, I'm glad to be joined once again by Gilbert Ngaira, who is from Their World Trust, right?
Yes.
And I have Dr. Teresa Mwoma Ocharo from the Kenyatta University, all right, senior lecturer at the institution. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an amazing day that we talked about this last week, and here we are.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's nice coming back again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good to talk about education because education is everything.
Sure.
Yes. The event is happening today.
Yes.
Yes.
How are you feeling about it? To start with you, Gilbert.
How am I feeling about it?
Yes.
I think it's timely, owing to the fact that it's actually happening the same day kids are going back to school.
Yes.
It's quite a good moment for the country. So it's my prayer that we'll be able to mobilize enough resources to push the agenda of early childhood education in our schools in Kenya.
Yeah. And Madam, it's an amazing day as an ECD expert. How do you perceive it?
This is a great opportunity, especially now when our president and the other world leaders are meeting in the UK, others are meeting virtually to discuss education issues and how they can support learners from low-income countries, those who are not able to access. But what is more important is the fact that we are expecting the global leaders to make pledges on how they are going to support education in their countries, to be able to support as many learners as possible to access education. Yes. And
it comes at a time, you've put it correctly, when schools have reopened, and there is a lot of pressure now on parents to gain the school fees. How is it going to change the whole narrative?
Yes, I know many parents are under pressure, especially now with COVID-19. You know, many things changed. We are in a crash program trying to make for the time lost last year because of COVID, and therefore children closed school for only 10 days. They are going back. Parents are required to buy the necessary education materials and also pay for their children fees to be in school. And I know there is a lot of pressure on the parents.
Yes.
It's my prayer that the teachers and the principals and the head teachers, wherever they are, they will be understanding to allow these parents to take their kids back to school as they look for resources to be able to support. But we are looking forward to having our president and the education team as a whole in our country coming up with measures and ways of ensuring that every child is supported to be in school by mobilizing resources that can support even those who are very needy.
Gilbert, your take on that?
Yeah, well, our interest on budgeting and making sure that every child is well taken care of, and owing to the fact that this is actually the responsibility of the government. Because when we look at our acts, Basic Education Act, for example, talks about free and compulsory education for all children.
Yes.
That means as a nation, we are mandated to mobilize resources that will ensure that this happens. And so that's why I say this is very timely, that our president is among top leaders, just to ensure that they mobilize enough resources that is going to guide us and ensure, hopefully, that all our children are in school.
How has the government, in terms of ECD, from their world perspective, taken steps to strengthen ECD in the country? Before I come to you.
I think it's yesterday I was just having a similar conversation. It is interesting because being a county function,
yes,
different counties are at different levels. I mean, as far as the implementation is concerned, different counties have different number of children that access early childhood education. And of course, when you're talking about budgeting, as we mentioned last week, you can only budget when you know how many people you're budgeting for.
Yes.
So then also, what other factors that you're supposed to be budgeting for per child? So if you look at that, statistics will be a bit different. You can't, for example, if you look at a county like Kwale County, which has done much better in terms of ensuring all factors are captured, compared to another county, say like Marakwet County, there'll be some discrepancies, but all in all, we can see some level of effort happening.
Yes.
Only that it just need to be coordinated. Yeah.
And Daktari,
yes,
do you share the same sentiments?
I want to say that government has put measures in place in terms of, in fact, by devolving the pre-primary education to the county government,
yes,
is one measure of ensuring that that function has been taken to the grassroots level, where the governor and all the leadership at the county level can be able to put measures in place that are corresponding to the needs of that particular county. To me, that is a positive note. But now, ensuring that funding is channeled towards this pre-primary education in terms of ensuring that all children are supported to be in school is one area that really needs to be looked into, so that as many children are able to move to join and attend preschool. Yes.
Where are we as a country ever since it was established, ECD?
Kenya has made great strides in terms of early childhood. Early childhood in Kenya can be traced back to the 1940s, when children, for the parents who were working in plantations, were being taken care of by women, getting a woman who could take care of these children. And we saw it grow in terms of coming up with the National Center for Early Childhood Education and District Center for Early Childhood Education to oversee the education activities in this country, and now moving to devolving it into the county level. So I think we have made great strides, which we should really appreciate. And in terms of teacher training, we have had many teachers who have been trained, whether in certificate, in diploma, in degree, and who are out there to be able to support. So in that way, I think we have made great strides, and we are moving towards the right direction in terms of ensuring we have qualified personnel who can support, and having as many ECD centers. Like now we have around 46,000
that's a big number.
School pre-primary centers, compared to that 2,000 primary schools. So we have really made a lot of strides in ensuring that we create spaces where children can go to school.
And Gilbert, this is quite important, because when she talks of that particular number, and it's the president who is on the front line to spearhead the whole of this process, how is it important for their world and us as citizens see that the president actually is on the front line to look for money to facilitate ECD?
Actually, Victor, for one of the key things that we look at and we work together with the policymakers on is the rationale behind everything. As we mentioned last weekend, you can have money and you're given money as a chunk, but then what? How do you allocate and reallocate all these finances? So our main discussion here is, according to the Global Partnership on Education, there's a percentage. All countries are required to put around 20% of their total, their national budget towards education as a whole. So then we are saying, out of this 20% that is now distributed towards these counties on education, we need to spearhead and ensure that we have at most 10% of that going towards early childhood education. And at the moment, Kenya is probably at around 1.8%.
Yeah.
And we want to be at 10%. While at 10%, then we have enough resources to capture the holistic development of the child. So as our president is spearheading the whole summit, it is actually very important for the country, because those are the main asks. And this is not just for Kenya. This is 10% to all the nations that are being supported towards this cause.
Maybe if I may add on what he has mentioned. I think it's important to get it right here that the president, the global education summit that is happening today and tomorrow is concerning education in general, education as a whole, not necessarily
ECD.
for early childhood. Here we want to focus on early childhood because this is an area that even you as a media, you have not given a lot of attention to educate the public about the importance of early childhood. So the summit is about mobilizing resources for education sector as a whole, and to be able to support the 90 countries that are in need of that kind of support, and to enable around 175 million boys and girls from low middle income countries to access education. So that is why from the early childhood, we want now, as these resources are being mobilized, as pledges are being made by global leaders and our president, these resources also should focus more on the early years. And why should we focus on the early years?
That's a question.
Yes, very good. Last time we talked about this at length in terms of what happens. But one thing that we need to take note of is the fact that the early childhood years is when there is rapid brain development.
Exactly.
This is the time when the child's brain is rapidly developing. This is the time we really need to stimulate this child in terms of ensuring that there is good nutrition, there is good health for this child. There are play materials from the time of conception up to wherever, good nutrition for the mother. But after birth, good nutrition for the baby, but also now stimulating with play materials, providing that child a nurturing care environment in terms of good caregiving practices, in terms of good health, protecting the child from all sorts of harm, and ensuring that there are learning opportunities for this child. This is helping the child to be prepared to go to preschool. So like 90% of the child's brain has developed by the time that child is 5 years. So if we are able to stimulate him or her in terms of language, in terms of social skills and all that, we are helping that to the brain to be able to acquire all those skills. So it is a very critical area. So as we discuss about pre-primary education, it's important to go back and forth in terms of what happens before pre-primary and what happens during primary as pre-primary when we prepare them to primary school.
Gilbert, what has just awakened most of these 90 countries? Because when you look at the amount of money that is going to be raised, $5 billion, that is a lot of money that is going to be distributed across all these countries. Then it means that there is something that people have noticed that has been amiss somewhere, right?
Yes. You know, when you look at the development of a nation, we're as strong as how educated we are.
Absolutely.
And education takes us through various journeys to ensure that we get as much exposure globally as possible. And I think this is a gap that has been realized globally. And we have countries that still are lagging behind in that space. And that's why budget allocation, the resources are important to ensure that we are brought at par globally to compete with the rest of the world. So that is mostly the main push to ensure this happens.
Maybe to add on that.
Yes, please, go ahead.
The 90 countries are those countries that have 80% of their children not accessing education.
Not at 80%?
Yes, not accessing. Where you have 4 out of 5 children in those countries are not accessing education
school.
at the different levels.
Yeah.
While when you compare them with where our high-income countries, you will have in high-income countries 4 out of 5. That is 80% are in school. So this is the motivation behind these 90 countries, so that these children are supported also. These 175 million children are supported to be able to join school at different levels from the lowest to the highest level. So that is the motivation behind supporting the 90
That's a worrying factor. That's a worrying factor there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the money would be found, right? But how then will the government go ahead and out of its way to make sure that 4 out of 5 kids are in school, so that we be at par with the high earning countries in the world? Because implementation will be, getting the money is one thing, but now implementation and taking these kids to school is something quite different.
And that is why early childhood education is very important, because when you start it at the lowest level, you're giving us a chance, you're giving the nation a chance to have a very well exposed and educated child or a nation from an early stage.
Yes.
Because if we just come and pump it all into primary school, for example, and high school, we are still missing the next phase, which is the most important. That means by the time those ones in early childhood education get to join into primary, they are still not as strong as they are supposed to be. So if we have an allocation to ensure that these children get to that level, then we are getting closer towards that, filling that gap. Yeah.
Are we achieving the Vision 2030 in terms of education?
Very good. When we are thinking about the Vision 2030, think about the adolescents.
Because we are in 2021.
Look at think about the adolescents of 2030.
Yes.
Where are they? They are either 4 years or 5 or up to 9. Those are the adolescents we will have. What foundation are we giving them if we are saying 4 out of 5 children are not in school globally? What are we saying when we say in Kenya, for example, 23 to 25% of these children are not in school? Then it means in 2030, when we are thinking about Vision 2030, in 2030 we are going to have around 23 to 25% of adolescents who did not get a proper foundation, who will not be performing well maybe in their school. Because for children, research has shown that children who attend school, they stay school longer. They tend to complete their different levels of learning. Unlike children who did not go through preschool, they are likely to drop out somewhere in school or perform poorly, and which means the end product, when we move to the adult level, we will have a community of adults who cannot be productive in life. So in other words, what we are saying, investing in the early years by providing a proper foundation is helping the nation to build a firm workforce during that time when it comes. So let us look at the adolescents we are looking for in 2030. They are in between 4 years, 5 years, up to 9 years now, who will be maybe 13, 14, 15 then. And then if that goes, the next 10 years, they will be a workforce. So if we didn't give them a proper foundation, then we are not anticipating to have a stronger workforce then.
And if let's come back home. If you look at the Kenyan government, the government introduced free primary education. And right now, the CBC and the new curriculum, how are all these blended together to make sure that at the end of the day, once you're done with your schooling, you are a complete human being, for lack of a better word. You are fully baked. Because in school, people used to tell us you are half baked. Umetoka school, but umepita tu mtihani, so which means you are half baked.
Yes.
The competency-based curriculum, in my view, is a good approach to ensuring that every child is supported to attain their full potential. Because what it means, if properly implemented, learners' potential will be identified in various, for example, this is a good artist, and he is supported that. This is a good musician. This is somebody who can be supported to become a very prominent musician. So in my view, it is the intentions are well. But now the challenge comes in terms of implementation.
Exactly.
Do we have, because it is a resource-intense curriculum, do we have all the requirements, the facilities that are required to enhance this potential, these talents in these children? Do all our schools have the resources that are required? That is an area that really needs to be looked into. But the competence-based curriculum, in my view, it's a good approach. It has good intentions, unlike the 844 system where assessment is done based on cognition, and at the end of the cycle, at grade 7, grade 8 or class 8 or from 4. Many factors may make you not to get, you can't be an A student, but during exam maybe you were very sick, or your parents were struggling to pay for you, you missed out school, and then you perform poorly, then you are condemned. But with competence-based, formative assessment is done at different levels, which will account to the final grade, which will be out of maybe 60% of everything that you have done. Like, for example, the learners did their grade 3 assessment, they did their grade 4 assessment, which is having a certain percentage. So what they will do when they are in grade 6, I think they were supposed to do it next year, but because of COVID and all this, maybe they will do it maybe next year or the other year, I'm not very sure. So it all accounts, which means even if you were very sick during exam or you did not do well, maybe whatever points you have accumulated from what you have been doing will add. Number 2, you will have been identified as a person who is good in music or as an artist and all that. And that potential in you is nurtured by the teachers, by the parents, by the community, so that by the end of the day, even if you don't get that A, you have this skill, and you will move to a technical college, and you will be able to pursue that, and you become a very useful person in this
I'll come back to you on that, because you've raised a very important point in terms of talent nurturing and all that. But Gilbert, even as the government is moving around to look for money to boost the education sector, one thing we can never run away from: one, she's talked about implementation. And 2, corruption. Yes. I mean, you go to schools, money is disbursed, and you find that it was not channeled to the intended purposes. How are we going to slay the whole of this giant and say we are all clean and now we can run a smooth education system?
You know, Victor, everyone in the nation, both leaders and civilians, have a responsibility towards each other. And when you are elected as a leader in charge of a county, a constituency, a ward, all that, you are actually entitled to offer the best to the people that have entrusted you with that position. Our role is to mobilize and ensure that we have enough resources to have this, to have our children get the best quality. The role of the leaders, the local leaders, the politicians, and the rest is purely to ensure that that has happened. So when we talk of corruption and all other factors that come around, it actually goes down. It goes down to that individual leader that he's entrusted by the people to ensure that this happens. Because if we are talking of Vision 2030, and we have leaders that are very strong on the Vision 2030. For example, like our good governor, Makueni, Professor Kibwana. If you look at what he's been able to do with the little resources that has been provided, you'll be amazed. And that actually tells us a lot can be done. If you look at what Kwale County has done, a lot can be done. So it's just an issue of the leadership itself, whoever is at the top and entrusted by the rest of the people to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Sometimes they say that little is always more, depending on how you look at it.
Exactly.
You can decide and say that a glass is half empty
or
half full.
Yes.
Depends on how
exactly.
we look at it. Madam, can we just take a break before we come back, and then you'll just jump in after the break. We pay a little bit. So, so we'll be right back. Today is Matters Education. Kids are back to school. Parents are struggling to get that school fees, but the president is also out there looking for the money to make sure that we are all in school. We'll be right back after this break. And welcome back. The show still continues, and today we are focusing on Matters Education. The students are back to school, 15 million of them. At this particular point of the pandemic, many parents and guardians are still struggling on how to take their kids to school and even to pay the school fees. But as I said, the president is out there, you know, amongst other government and among other global leaders, to get money to support education in 90 countries. That is a big deal. And with me to discuss that is, you know, the best guest here, Teresa Mwoma, who is a senior lecturer at the Kenyatta University, and of course we have got Gilbert Ngaira from their World Trust. Before we went on a break, you wanted to interject on the point that Gilbert raised.
Yes, you had asked a question on what should be done to ensure issues to do with not utilizing the funds that are allocated well. I think it's all about putting systems in place to ensure that whatever resources that have been allocated to the education sector or whichever are well monitored. Ensuring that there are checks and balances, ensuring that there is a framework showing how much should go where and whether that money has been utilized. I think that is what is lacking, ensuring that we have accurate figures, because like when we talk about free primary or free secondary education, it's about numbers and the capitation that is given for every child. Ensuring that when a school says we have 1,000 children, are they 1,000 or are they exaggerating the numbers to have more resources? And so putting those systems in place to ensure that there are checks and balances to ensure, yes, school A has 1,000 students, school A received all of the capitation that they required, school A utilized the capitation on the specific activities, and whichever school that is not being genuine, an action is taken so that the others can also that can serve as an example. So that is how we can ensure that the funds allocated are utilized for the right reasons and the right way.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Gilbert, it's a big deal when you look at the number of students who are in school, the ratio of teacher-student ratio in school, and when you talk about the government disbursing a particular amount of money to the schools, and many schools will always say that, you know, it's not enough, and now they are being forced right now to parents to get into their pockets and to get money to pay. How are we looking at this factor in education to make sure that parents are all, you know, they're cushioned from the shock, and the schools are also running pretty well?
I think, Victor, this goes back to what Dr. has just mentioned right now. It's all about accountability.
Accountability. Because
resources are disbursed, yes. Are they enough?
Yes.
When you're talking of the number of students in specific schools, have we allocated enough resources to ensure that this is captured? We're talking about teachers, teacher ratio. Do we have enough teachers that can be able to allow us fill that gap, so that we have probably maybe 1:9 25, for example, students, learners in a class or something. It goes back to having organized systems that is well structured and well followed.
Yes. I'm looking at the newspaper here, and it says that time is running out for CBC implementation, and it says that some of the planned activities are yet to start as clock ticks towards the complete switch in 2023. And it says briefly now that for 4 years after Kenya ditched 844 education system, a look at its predecessor shows that there are still major gaps and time is running out for a smooth transition. Now, questions are also being raised over preparations for the grand shift from 844 system, which had been in place for 36 good years, to the new education system, even as the clock ticks towards the complete switch in 2023. Dr. What is the hitch here?
I think certain factors that might have made the competence-based curriculum lag behind the time.
Yes.
Is one of it is COVID-19. The current grade 5 now who have entered grade 5 this semester, this term, was supposed to have entered grade 5 in January.
Yeah.
And then they would be in grade 6 next year, 2022, to be able to do their national exam. So as much as we say time is running out, it's also important to look at what are some of the factors that have contributed to this. COVID-19 plays a critical role in this. In terms of implementation, I want to believe, looking at the calendar year, the way the Ministry of Education has designed it, it is in such a way that by next year, the learners will be able to catch up somehow. Okay, so as much as lagging behind is happening, the government or the Ministry of Education is also trying to put measures in place to ensure that they are able to catch up. But that also has some negative implication, I may say, because now students are being pushed to work with compressed time, to meet
cover.
Cover what they were not supposed to cover. For example, what they were supposed to cover. For example, we have grade 4 who have been at home for the last whole term, and Form 1s who are now joining the school. But in terms of implementation, if we go as per the government plan, I'm sure they will be able to catch up. Another thing I want to say is that the fact that this is a new curriculum,
so we are getting used to it gradually,
differently. And there are those who oppose it just for opposing. There are those who support it just for supporting. But there are those who are for it and are keen to see how do we make this system work. Okay? And that is where we need to come in. I want to say something here. Different stakeholders in the education system have different roles to play. Parents also have a critical role to play.
Because like parents are also stakeholders in education.
Because like the competence-based curriculum is about various projects children are involved in. So parents have to be part of that process. You know, I know many parents have complained, oh, the child comes home with a lot of homework. I'm sitting with the child up to I don't know what time. I think it is time now we say, yes, this is my child and I have to play this critical role to support him. And you know what you are communicating to the child? That my mom, my dad, my caregiver is also keen on what I'm doing in school, you know. And learning now is continuous from home, from school to home and back to school. So let us look at it practically. But having said that, I'm not convinced that we have all the resources that are required in school in terms of the teaching, learning materials,
the issues, the
training of the teachers, equipping them with the right skills to be able to implement the competence-based curriculum is something that really needs to be looked into if we are going to be successful in terms of
Gilbert, perhaps we went through the 844 system and we missed the CBC by a whisker. Not by a whisker. Let me just put we just missed the we missed the CBC. But even that 844, as they say that it was there for 36 good years, and now the government decided now we are going to change the whole system. When you go to the neighborhood, you'll find kids doing some unique things. you'll find a kid trying to build something that even you said, I wish I saw this earlier on, or painting something that probably we were not used to in the past. Back in the days, you'd be told, "Endo chunge mbuzi," and that is it. When you go home, endo fanye this and that. How is it going to, for example, when you look at the kids right now, in their early formative stages, when you look at the future, what kind of society are you seeing?
Actually, we are in a very, very interesting dispensation.
Yes.
In my opinion. When our parents went through school, they came at a point where they were actually poached from right from high school, and they already allocated a job because jobs were available. And then our generation came. We still had, I call marupurupu. Some the level of work was still there that you can actually go and get it.
Yes.
But from where we are right now, it's more about helping children identify opportunities other than jobs, because the world is filled by people that are filling needs in the societies. These needs are actually opportunities that are presented. These opportunities will be in any field, depending with the children's specific interest, talents, and skills. So I think this curriculum, it's going to help us to go towards that direction. And as long as we support it, we give it the support it requires, the resources it requires, and especially the teachers, because those are the ones that shape the minds of these young children at that particular time. Hopefully they get the exposure enough to understand it's not just about jobs. It's about opportunities and creating more opportunities out here. For example, an opportunity can be something very simple.
But how you make it.
Yes.
It's about how you
package
that opportunity.
It. Yes. And I think that is what is important. So that when you know that you see that kid who can make a small car out of those wires.
The and the wires.
Yes. How do you work with this child to the next stage? It only takes someone who's been there before to actually guide them, or someone who is surrounded by people who are there. And that means it's also a big challenge to our teachers, that they need to also go out and explore for themselves.
But then it also goes back to the parents, because a teacher will do 8 to 5 job.
Yes.
You have got or maybe around 60 students in the same class.
Exactly. So it's actually, as Daktari said, it's beyond. At school, you're with the teacher. So the teacher has to get as much exposure as possible to deliver that. When they come home, the parents as well, they have to provide this.
So learning continues.
Yes, learning. It's a continuous process. You and I are still learning.
Yes.
We learn every day. As the famous Henry Ford said, the moment you start learning, the moment you stop learning, you start dying. And that means we need to continue learning each and every single day. And it's a continuous process until we retire from this world. So that is the same thing. We need to provide these opportunities for our children.
Absolutely.
So that we ensure they are well prepared to meet the needs and satisfy the needs of the society.
The moment you stop learning, the moment you start dying. That's a powerful word.
Now, to respond to your question, in addition to what Gilbert has said, the world of tomorrow, based on the current child that you saw drawing a drawing that you cannot.
And when you go to social media, you'll find social media is a wash.
Yes.
Parents are getting shocked that mimi sikujua mtoto wangu anaweza draw kitu kama hii.
Very good. You see, it is through this curriculum that has enabled pull out that talent in that child to make that drawing, that painting. If it is well nurtured, we are looking forward to have a workforce that will create jobs, will create employment, because if he goes to that direction and is able to mentor as many people as possible, they will bring bread on the table. Unlike today, when we look at, my child came out with an A, and he is joining this university. And then by the end of the day, all these children, all these graduates from the universities are going out to look for jobs which are not there. But for the child who knew how to draw and that was nurtured, he will go out there, make the drawings and sell whatever products they have made. They will make money.
Self-reliant.
So, yes, they will be self-reliant. They will mentor as many people as possible. And that is where we want to move to.
Exactly.
And we need to be positive about it. We need to support the government to be able to implement, because even as much as we say the government should do this, should do that, should put this in place, but other stakeholders like the parents, like the civil society organizations, like the private sector should also come in to support the schools, to support the teachers, to support the learners, so that now we are all putting our hands in this education for these children to enable them come out successful in life.
And Victor,
yes,
since I like looking at the budgeting, when you look at the bigger picture now,
exactly,
you have a very creative child who's been able to do a paint job and been able to sell it.
Yeah.
He or she decides to get a few other like-minded young people like themselves who can also paint, frame, and sell, and hire other people who will continue helping them, because even in painting itself, when now you go professionally, there are many other factors that are involved, and there are many people involved in it.
Yes.
That means creation of opportunity. That means you've already learned how to generate the income from nothing, from just your talent, other than the other way around, which is how the system has been, especially with the 844. Our mind was set on graduate and get a job. Go to school. So you come out and there's no job, and you get frustrated. You have a whole, you are one of the best brains the country has, but you can't go beyond because now you're stuck. So I think it is important because it creates that opportunity where people can also be able to start creating their own opportunities in various specs. This ultimately affects the government, because now when you create your own income and you're able to pay tax, it raises us. So imagine you have more people that are paying tax from generating an opportunity. It has a bigger effect in the country, which is more positive, and might actually help us reduce in borrowing all this money we are looking for.
And even when you talk about nurturing talent, the president was quite interested in nurturing of talent. He said white collar jobs, the world market right now is shrinking. So what is going to to upscale you to the next level is that the talent that you have. And by the way, the Bible says that every person has a talent. How you make use of it is, if you don't use it, he will take it and give it somebody else. So let's look at this direction. Some of the challenges that we are facing, even as the government is pushing for that proper education, the CBC, the ECD, and the new system of education, there are so many challenges. For example, socioeconomic. How are we going to move gradually to make sure that amidst all the challenges, we will still get it right? Yes, Dr.
Yes, quite a number of challenges at different levels, because like in pre-primary school level, we have challenges with the infrastructure, we have challenges with teaching learning materials, we have challenges where teachers have been trained and they are not getting jobs in the teaching profession, and therefore they are moving to do other things that were not related with the training that they received, and all this will have a negative impact on the education at that level. When we move a bit higher, we have different challenges at primary and secondary level. We have girls, we have seen through the media, many girls becoming pregnant, and which means they have babies to look after at home. They have the education that they should pursue, because looking at the back to school policy requires that even when a school girl becomes pregnant, she's supposed to go back to school and study, but the policy is not clear what happens to the baby this pregnant girl, this girl has left at home. So all these challenges will impact psychologically, focusing on the education and also looking at the baby that they have left behind, and all this. So to navigate through this, there is need for a lot of funding towards supporting the different levels of education, in terms of ensuring that The girls, once they get back to school, there is support given to the baby they have left back at home in terms of caregiving. Schools, we have challenges with teachers handling many children. There is need for maybe the government, the Teacher Service Commission, and the county government to hire more teachers to look after these children so that the teachers have the right numbers. We are in COVID now, and we have all our children. In fact, since the long lockdown, this is the time now when we have all of them in school.
15 million of them.
Yes. So where is the 1.5 spacing? Are our schools now ready to receive these children with the hand washing facilities or sanitizing materials and all that? You know, so it's a challenge that really needs to be looked into to ensure that now our children are supported not to contract the COVID-19 because now they are back. Our teachers are ready to support. So it's a whole lot of issues that needs to be done.
Gilbert, you deal with the numbers. And at this particular point, we're looking at a situation where the government is going to bring money from the stakeholders and what have you. How are you going to compare, number one, the private institutions and public institutions in terms of all of them becoming at par in terms of nurturing of talent, the CBC and the early childhood development?
I was having a discussion with a very good friend, the governor of Nyeri.
Yes.
You're discussing about the whole spectrum. And of course my discussions are around early childhood education. And the reality is all this it's government mandate to ensure that all these children get quality. All children in Kenya get quality education. But because that doesn't happen, that's why we have now the difference. Some parents will opt to take their children to better schools so that they ensure they give their children a head start in life. But that means if government, and I'll take you back, during this our parents' time, everyone was finishing school to rush to a government school. No one was finishing school to looking forward to go to a private school. Then what happened along the way? We got our priorities upside down because our qualities went down in public schools, and the private school came to fill the gap that the government schools actually neglected. So what we are saying right now is with the proper resources and proper systems in place, proper implementation, we can actually get this back on track so that anyone is looking forward to going into a government school because they know that is where the best facility and the best learning happens. So it's a challenge to all the stakeholders to make sure this happens.
All right, as we come to a close, I'm told that we are stuck right of time. But just somebody's asking, so the CBC is here, so what about the old folks, people who went through the 844 system? How are they going to blend? You know, kids are now creating this and that and what have you. Did we miss something? How are we going to catch up? Or even you did go through the CBC.
I think nobody should lament that he went through the 844 system, or like me, I went to the there was whatever, the old system. I didn't go through the 844 system. I think everybody should be comfortable with the system of education that they have gone through, and they should be able to look out on ways on how they can use the knowledge they have gained to be able to turn it around and be able to generate income or to bring bread on the table. Okay, so nobody should be able to feel disadvantaged because of the 8 system. And again, when you look at how implementation is happening, those in the 844 system are allowed to go complete the system as they started, while those who in the CBC are also coming in to finish with the new system and going through. So the government has planned it in such a way that nobody is going to be disadvantaged because this is being implemented. But I want to say, to add on something you asked about the private and the public. Private is more on business, and for your business to flourish, you must give your best. And most providers of private schools, they're putting their best foot forward to ensure that they are putting all the required resources to ensure that they are doing the best to have more clients.
Yes.
But remember, when they do their primary and they are going to high school, you have seen parents complaining, yes, my child had 408 and it was not called the national, which means when it comes to high school, the government has the best national schools where you can go to. So what is it that is done in these best national schools at secondary level that can be done in the primary level so that we have the best, so that parents, instead of taking their children to the public, the private, they can take their children to the public.
My director is even on the floor telling me time is up. We can never finish this conversation. We did it last week, again we did it today. I just need to thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best. I think we'll be here next time to see how it's gone in terms of the fund that the president, the conference is today and tomorrow, and we just have to do a follow-up of this particular story. We've been speaking to Dr. Teresa Mwoma Ocharo, senior lecturer at the Kenyatta University, and of course Gilbert Ngaira from the World Trust. All right.